Hi, it's Lyle from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Now, I bet you wondered when I was going to do it. I have the Queen of the Nile Inlays. So let's get started and I'll tell you what we're going to do. So, I didn't pick an ornate piece of furniture. I didn't pick something with lots of detail, lots of things to work around. I didn't do any of that. We will put all that onto this piece of furniture. I picked a bog standard but quality, well made, mid-century modern wardrobe. Flat, smooth, nothing going on. We'll put all that detail into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these handles. The piece has been cleaned. I'm just going to sand a wee bit around there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, cut the little selvage off our inlays. So we'll get down on the floor for that. So let's get on. Okay, so I've taken the old mid-century modern handles off and I'm just giving you a little sneak peek of the handles that I will be applying on. These are beautiful vintage handles and I'm going to be putting these on instead. Okay, so what I'm actually doing here is I'm cutting off the little edge so that it all butts up nicely together, and I'm cutting off some of the excess because I want to know how much I've got to play with when I'm going to masking tape this together as one whole. Now I probably won't apply it as one whole, but for my overall sort of getting an idea of the piece. Now you're probably wondering, why am I doing this first when I've got so many more things to do to it? I'm going to apply my inlay first, paint it and try and avoid, this is why I'm putting this together, so I know what the distances are. I'm going to apply my inlay and then I'm going to seal my inlay so that it's on there, and then I'm going to do the details. It's just so that's the best way to kind of give you, when you're looking at composition, it's the best way to understand where you're going to put things. And I racked my brains of doing it lots of different ways, but I think this way, for composition's sake and to make sure your negative positive spaces are filled, and because we're going to be putting molds on this, we're going to be adding texture, we're going to be adding stripes, we're going to be painting it, so there's an awful lot of other things to come, but right now all we're focusing on is getting this bad boy onto the wardrobe. So what I've basically done is I've put it down on the ground and I've taped it together. I've cut off as much of the negative space as I could so that I know how much I've got to decorate top and bottom. It's slightly squint, don't worry about that, because I am actually going to be applying it in its actual square sheets. This was just to give a rough template of where I was going, because I might want to put some moulds or something in these gaps. I'm not sure about that yet. But what I've got is I've just got a chalk pen, and all I'm doing is just doing, my pen's kind of running out. I'm just doing a rough line round it like this, because this is where I'm going to be applying my white paint. Now you can give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, I'll maybe actually do that here. I'll give myself a little bit of wiggle room up the top. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove this very carefully, yeah, and we can separate back into sheets now, and I'm going to paint this section here white. And Martin, I don't know whether you can show them the sides. Can you get round here to the sides? I'm also going to do something like this, and we'll just do this now. Something like that sort of shape. I'm going to paint this white as well, and the same on the other side. And once I've done it, I'll show you. You can see the sort of flaws in the wood on this, so it's good that it's getting a nice paint job. Let's talk about a couple of points. First point is, we've never kind of on my channel, it has happened to me obviously plenty of times, but it's not something that's generally relevant to me because I don't generally get bleed through. Bleed through is caused by the tannin seeping through the wood into your paint, and that's what gives it that brown colour. I don't very often use white, so that's why it's never really an issue for me. However, I love this. I am keeping that dirty, I was going to put some dirty aging on it anyway, so I'm just going to use the tannins here as my discoloration behind my piece. That's all I'm going to do. Seal it as per usual. That dirtiness I'm going with. If you are painting a piece of furniture white and you think it's going to be a bleeder, I wasn't really sure about this one. If you think it's going to bleed through, there's a product called Zinsser Bin Primer. if you just spray your furniture with the primer first and then just carry on as normal. It's a stain blocker as well, so it'll just, you know, get rid of all of that and you won't have any problems when you're painting white. It's never really relevant to me because I always paint with dark, bright colours. So that's bleed through. And what I've done with the top of ours is I've created a little hinge with the tape so that I can lift this up, paint underneath it and lay it down flat. The reason why I've done that is so our alignment's perfect for our next pieces that we go to put on. Now, word to the wise, because I've just found this out, when you are taping together your piece, actually, I'm going to have to rewind that and get Martin to put it on the screen when I'm taping it off, because it's a bit late now. You've already taped it in the video, but don't use a high tack masking tape. I put it on my jumper a couple of times to get rid of the stick, but I think it might rip the transfer. So just a word, if you're doing this, when you go to do it, I mean, I doubt very much you'll be doing it along with me, but if you are doing it along with me, I'll get Martin to put a little bit up on the screen to say use an ultra low tack or pound shop masking tape, something that has very low tack, because yeah, I managed to get mine off, not problem, but I think it has a potential, this sort of kind of furniture tape has maybe a potential to rip off our inlay. Right, after all that explaining, I'll actually get to doing something now. So I stuck these little bit of tapes up here earlier, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift this up and I'm going to tape this here where there's no inlay part, because then if it rips, we're good. Now, you've all seen me apply inlays, and obviously I'm going to have to get Martin to pause the camera because I haven't got any water. I'll be back in 1 minute. So I've got my water. Now, Martin, do you want to come in relatively close so people can see this? All you're doing for your inlays now, I have applied so many inlays on our channel, so really it shouldn't be, you know, that this is a complicated thing now, but one nice but not too thick, I mean, I don't know what constitutes nice, but you know what I mean, not too thick, not too thin coat of paint like that on where your inlay is going to go, like that. Right up there, because it going to go right up there. Whoops, a lumpy bit in my paint. Oh god, there's more lumpy bits. Just making sure that I've got up there. I'm just going to catch that little gritty bit. Oh, that'll help it. Right. Then grab your little hinge, take your paper off really gently, and I am trying to line this one up with the door. Now embed it first with your hands. You can use a brailer, or brayer or whatever, a lino roller we call them in the UK. And first of all, you want to pat it all down. You want to make sure. I'm just going to do this for a minute because I am slightly concerned that there isn't enough paint up here for that part there. And then my best method, my best way, some people spray it. I use a wet cloth, and all I do is push down and try and get as many of the wrinkles out as I can. I'm not exactly gentle with it either. I mean, I am rubbing it, but don't rub it too hard in case it rips. Now, generally, if they're a coloured inlay, they go quite opaque and you can see where it's been transferred onto, but because we're dealing with white, I want to make sure that I've gone right down to the edges there. And just making sure that it's all, I'm just going to take this bit of tape off up here, stuck down onto my paint. Now, that's one done. And I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to use my little piece of tape again, hold this back at this end and stick it up there and get my paint. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to work all the way down till my inlays are all applied. This is just this kind of like tricky bit, this part, just making sure that everything's nice and straight. Now if there's bits and gaps on your inlay, because it's dark, we can get a dark grade paintbrush or an artist brush and we can fill in any bits that we're not happy with. I am going to actually paint this inlay, so I'm just not concerned. I've got another lumpy bit in my paint. This was a part of an old can of painting. I think it's got a little bit lumpy. Now, it'll just add to texture. Just making sure that I'm sure I'm going down way further than I need to do, but just making sure. Lift my little hinge and what's going on here? This is slightly slipped. Not to worry. It's this part down here that's the most important part. Just going to remove that. Just going to actually take the tape off that one and that one there. Now, wet cloth. If you think your cloth is drying up and you're in a warm room, wet your cloth again. So what we're doing now is we're patting down first to make sure that it's embedded down into the paint, and then we're smoothing to make sure that we don't have too many massive wrinkles in it. Especially round about our face, we don't want wrinkles on your face. Because of these two edges are buttoned up, I'm not rubbing, I'm patting, so not to disturb the edges. A little wrinkle there in her eye, I think. Right up to the edge. So I'm going to go on now, and I'm just going to work down do my next two, my next two, and my next two. And then once we've got them on, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so Heirloom Roses was the mould I used, and I used Classic Elements. And I did a couple of these, one of these, and just a selection of roses. Now, I cast these with Amazing casting resin. These just look a little bit pink because at one point my clay was pink that I'd used in the mould before, even though I'd washed them out. If you've never used Amazing casting resin, it's just 1 part to 1 part. You mix it up until it's less opaque again. Put it in your moulds, wait 10 minutes, and they come out white. This is different to jewellery resin. This is Eddie, who's decided to have a little look. Eddie's an old dog. There you go, Eddie. Anyway, we digress with Eddie. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these onto here like this, and Eddie's helping. Eddie, come here, Eddie. Eddie's a rescue dog, so he looks a little bit kind of shy. He was fine. So, all I'm going to do is sort of kind of think about my positioning. I had 2 of these a minute ago, and I think these 2 are going to kind of go down the bottom of my wardrobe here, and I'm going to put the roses up the top and we'll go from there. But the first thing I want to, the reason why I didn't put these on after the piece was painted was the moulds are best applied wood to the plastic instead of paint to plastic. If I glued these on here, I'm going to have to do some other bits that I want to put on the piece that I will have to just apply, but for the best adhesion, it's better if they're glued straight onto the wood. So because they're quite big, I wanted to be able to do this. So all I'm going to do is I have a strong glue, which I'm using hard as nails. I think in America you use quick and thick. In the UK you just any sort of other strong glues. Squeeze it out. I think I've gone a little bit crazy on this one actually. I'll get some of that off in a minute onto this one. Again, that's quite a lot of glue on that mould. Eddie's groaning. It's all too much for him. It's because he's getting paid. Okay, so I want it kind of out a bit, so I'm going to make sure that that's stuck there. This is on wheels, that's why it's rolling back, and I'll do a bit of cleanup in a minute once I've got it kind of stuck to where I think I wanted to kind of make that tilt that way a bit more. Actually, I don't like that there. I want to move it down a bit. So probably more here. So I'm really going to have to do some cleanup now on there. And I just want to check that that's not going to be, I don't want anybody kicking the bottom of it and it coming off. So I'm going to do the same, just kind of get it sort of lined up on this side. And when you're doing things like this, and I'm going to do this in a minute when I'm off camera, is you have to look at the piece as a whole. When you're so close to it, you can't tell how things look. Have you ever painted something close up and thought it's rubbish? You go, stand back. I'm continually painting and standing back, painting and standing back. So that's what I'm going to do with these in a minute. I'm going to go and I'm going to check that these are in the position that I want, that they're reasonably even. Some people would probably measure them, but that's not how I roll. I'm going to clean them up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue some of the roses up the top, and once I've glued them on, I'll show you. I've applied the moulds, just a collection of roses up here. I got Martin to cut this one in half he used a Stanley knife and then put a blade in it and hammered it so it would split down the middle for where my doors are. Another sort of an array of roses there, no rhyme or reason. The two pieces that you saw me apply down the bottom. Now we're going to talk paint. From here to here, and from the bottom to the white, we're going to paint it a colour, and the same with the colour round the two white circles, which I'll show you as I go along. But all of this external edge here, and the same at the bottom, I want a little bit more texture in my paint. So I have a little ice cream container here, and I have Annie Sloan's Old Violet, which is a sort of dusky purple, lilac-y, well, violet-y. This is how it looks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some of this in here. This is just for the texture around the edge, but I think that'll probably be enough. And I have all-purpose filler. I'm really not quite sure what you would call that in the States. What would you call that in the States, Martin? Joint compound, maybe?
I have no idea.
Right, I think it may be joint compound. So I've put some of that in to my paint, and this is just to give it texture. You could use products like salt wash, baking soda. There's loads of different texturizing mediums in the market, but this will just make it a little bit thicker. It's still fine enough. It's not going to make it really stipply, but we're going to stipple it on. You know, it won't be sitting up in peaks or anything like that. I have this kind of brush to go around the edges. I've got a normal sort of round. When we get to about here, we'll just swap to the paint by itself without having the joint compound in it. So really, I'm just going to be doing this round the edges with the thicker paint. Now once you've done this, remember and put your brushes straight into water. Straight into water with this, because it's, and I am creating texture with my brush, and because I have the junk compound in it, now I can't go up as far as here, but I can kind of go down the edges of here now. So a risky strategy, but I'm going to take it to the each side of this, but I'm going to go over smooth paint on my mould so that the definition is not lost. So just up to the edges, just to like that, and that kind of stops the showing where the glue is as well, which is quite a good thing. And I'm just going to work my way around all of my edges really. This is why I wasn't too worried about it having any sort of fine finish. I knew how much texture was going to be put onto it, so I don't want that piece of there though. There. Still showing through. There. This is going to need 2 coats of this, so you're going to do this around all your edges. Now at this part here, I want to kind of come up a bit and down like this with my thicker paint, and just getting lots of texture on it around this edge. And then really once you know you've done all your edges, you're just going to get your tin of your smooth paint and you're just going to smooth to the line like this and make this part smooth like that. That's all you're going to do until you've done your first coat like that, and you're going to take it right up to here just now. We're going to blend this and we've got way more to do, but just take it up to there just now. This is just the base coat, and obviously where you've done this, you're just going to put your paint without your joint compound, your filler on it, just to do that there, just so you don't lose the definition on your mould. Okay, so I'm going to go on and I'm going to do that. What you just saw me doing the texturizing at the edges and the smoothing at the sides is going to come into play a little bit more on our next steps. This is 1 coat only, so only 1 coat with the texture and 1 coat smooth up into our inlays until our inlays can come off. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this piece completely dry so that we can get our inlays off, so that we can give this a second coat. And once this is a second coat, we'll move on to our next thing we've got to do. I mean, it's quite involved this, but once we get it done, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be nice. Okay, in a minute I'm going to show you what I've done here at the top, but let's just quickly talk through it and what you need. You need some masking tape. I used the 12 stamp, but you can use whatever stamps you want, and the white paint and a little bit of original Old Violet to kind of blur the edges. And this isn't finished by any manner of means, but it's just a starter kind of, because we're going to put like a gold stripe down the centre here, and we're going to gold leaf along here, and we're going to start colouring in these moulds down here, and we're going to, obviously I'm going to paint here, not the whole thing, just accents here and there, probably maybe just the flowers, and obviously I've got some things that I would like to talk about up the top, so I'll just get up here and Martin can follow me. So it's just the same principle up the top as it is down the bottom, and I'll show you how I did that. So starting here, don't worry about this because we can fill this in. So starting here and then having 1 to keep us straight. I will need to put my glasses on because that's not straight. There. And then 1 here. And then our little one that will keep us straight. If you're really wanting it perfect, do one of these top and bottom, so that, but I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It's not going to be the end of the world if it's not quite right. So you just do this all the way along, and then I'll show you painting it. So first of all, we want to blend this bottom line. So we're just going to do this, kind of a bit like this, just to kind of blend off that, you know, it's not a little bit kind of up and downy, like that. And then what we want to do is not too much, some bits thick, some bits thin, so kind of like sort of dry brush in there, and then a little bit of a blend, taking it up to those roses which we're going to paint in, around the roses. So that's a bit of a thinner one, that one, but we want it a wee bit thicker here, a little bit thicker here, and then a little bit of a blend. It's just to make it look a bit more sort of distressed. So I am just going to go along doing all of these, and then we'll come back in a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to ink up the toile stamp, and we're going to stamp in between. Don't worry about this bit here, you'll see I've done it down below, but when we pull the tape off we'll fix this bit here with these sort of edges. But at the moment we're just going to really sort of, you know, you don't need to ink all of it up, just half of it probably would probably be enough. And you're just going to put a suggestion that there's a flower underneath. I think I need a little bit more ink on this. So like, you know, here and here and here, and you know, you get the gist. You just kind of like stamp it in between it to give a suggestion that there's flowers and things running in between these lines. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that in between these lines. I'm going to pull off the masking tape. Like this. And that gives it a sort of worn stripe look, with a sort of suggestion that there's florals on that stripe. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is, because we can't just have that messy sort of, it needs something around that line. I'll be blending up these sides, so don't worry about this. This line here, yeah, if you use either this part with the leaves or this part with the leaves, I think probably I'm going to stamp this part here, and then what you're going to do when you've stamped it, where these leaves are, you're going to run along this edge. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So you're only inking those leaves, and you're going to do something like this. It doesn't matter if it runs into the other, like that, to kind of give it, and you're just going to work your way along, just inking the same amount each time, maybe here and maybe just the edges here. It just finishes this little kind of edge off a little bit neater and a little bit nicer. Put some more ink on my stamp. And all I'm doing is Just moving it along. Another wee leaf there. You don't need to continuously ink it because you want that faded sort of look that the Queen's got. So yeah, I think that's probably enough for there. I'm trying to work out whether I'll just kind of finish this sort of white edge off here just by doing just the edges like that. No further than that. I'm not going down any further, and I'll just come round and I'll do the same on the other side. Now we're kind of getting there now. I think I need some more ink on my stamp. There. What I need to do now is I've got a little bit left in this can of my white and a little bit of my purple on my brush. And what I'm doing, I'm just kind of run it down. Needs to be a little bit darker than that. I'll do it on my lid of this. So a sort of lighter shade, and all I'm kind of doing is in the centre of here, it's just giving this a little bit of a highlight. You can start, we're going to paint those in, so I'm not too, just quick run up and down. Now, what I've then done is I've got quite a lot of white on my brush, and all I'm doing is doing this here and this on this edge, and then putting a little bit of the original old violet onto it and just blending down till I meet same up in here. And at the bottom, I just got the purple, straight purple, no white, and just went, just to get rid of that again, any bits where you've stamped. I'm going to start blending this side in a minute. What I did down the bottom, if there was bits where I wanted to make it look like it had worn off, you just use the purple to kind of knock it back. It's a bit lighter actually. I need to kind of clean my brush. My brush has got awful dark, but yeah, you just like can just touch it with the edge and that just knocks it away again and makes it fade back into the background. So I'm going to do a little bit of blending around here, and I'm going to redo this up here with a dark textured paint, and then we're going to talk about how I'm going to paint this. Okay, so I remembered this harsh line, if you put a little bit of white in it and just kind of like almost blend that out, just if you want it sort of less. I did that on the one down at the bottom, so I just feel I've got continuity. So a little bit of this and a little bit of this. There is no rhyme or reason to this. I mean, this is whatever you want. You might not want to do this. You might just want nice plain stripes. You might not want stripes at all. So just kind of highlighting that. While I'm here, while I'm at this stage, I'm going to show you what my intentions are for, I do have moulds, they're down here. I cast more than I needed. This shell, I don't like this line, but this was going on before it anyway. I'm going to have to get a black acrylic pen and just fill in all that detail so it doesn't look like it's missing. But this shell is going to go here, and this part is going to go on here as a crown around the peacock, and I have some florals just to carry that around, which I'm going to glue these on just so that we've got more details we can paint in, but I will paint these separately before I glue them on. Messy hands. There are others, they're just somewhere I can't find right now. I forgot to tell you, we need to take it outside to spray seal it. I have to take this outside because it's in my boot room and it'll smell my whole house, but if I was in the stable, I would just spray it. I'm going to take it outside the back door, which just happens to be there, and spray seal it with lacquer, because these are live. So if I went, say I was wanting to paint this in and my brush was a little bit wet, this would start to run, and I'm not wanting any of that. So I'm going to spray it first, and any of the little touch-ups, where are they? Here. And I'm going to kind of darken up some of the letters, not all of them, because I mean it is supposed to look, you know, like it's faded, and I can do that once it's been sealed as well, just using a small black acrylic paint pen. So we'll take it outside, we'll seal it, and then we'll talk about what sort of colours I'm going to use just to paint it in, but not all of it, just some of it. Right, so before I do anything else in the piece, I'm going to paint some of this in, not all of it, just bits and pieces, just to kind of give it an overall look before I move on. I have spray sealed this. It's really important that you spray seal it. Paint can be live. The inlays are live until they have been spray sealed, and then you can lacquer them and do whatever, but I sprayed this with spray lacquer, 2 coats all over. There may be some that I've missed, and if we have a kind of little smeary smudge bit, I'm not too worried about that. So I've just got a whole bunch of chalk paint on here. These are the colours that I think I'm going to use, and I'm kind of using, I've got lots of different sizes and shapes of artist brushes to paint this in, and I'm just going to pick out pieces on the design. So for example, this leaf here might want a little bit darker, and put some water on my brush, and maybe this here a little bit lighter, and just kind of giving it depth and texture using thick and thinner paint watered down on my leaves. And you can change the colour of your leaves, so if you want your leaves slightly more jaded, more jadey colour, you could do this. And you could have that, you know, a sort of jadey colour there, and work your way sort of around it, mixing it through the different shades of green. And like, you don't need to be, you know, too, you know, it's a suggestion. I'll make it the rest up itself. So you're just kind of like, you know, you don't want to spend, well, you could spend all day on this, but I'm not going to, you know, you can just go around it all and paint it in. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to paint in my flowers, my leaves, and as we move up, Martin will come back and do sort of close-ups every so often. I just don't feel like, you know, you want to sit and watch me do this whole thing. So that's all I'm going to do right now. I'm just kind of like painting it in like this. Okay, so, you know, like, this is a really light-handed sort of painting style. It's sort of kind of watercolor style. You don't want to be putting your brush in the paint and putting it on solid. You'll lose all your detail behind it. So just light touches, just suggestions of colour, not like, you know, crazy, you know, like painting it all in one solid colour, because you'll lose all your depth and detail and everything of the actual design, and then you'll be thinking, I've ruined that now. So just like gently, you know, this is the centre of this sort of, I think it's a penny here. So, you know, like, I'm just kind of like, I don't know why I chose to do them green and white, but that was my choice. So I think it was because I wanted other colours. Actually, I'm going to really be honest in camera. When I looked at it, I thought it was a cabbage. Okay, I'll try and compose myself. I hope IOD don't see this. Yeah, I don't know why I thought it was a cabbage, but it gave me cabbagey vibes. Maybe I should start again, put a little suggestion of pinks in here. Now I've just worked out what it is. There you go. See, it's all entertainment here. This is not a cabbage. you can see that I'm not going back into my paint very often either. You know, I'm not dipping all the time. I'm just using the paint round and round and round, and you know, that's a little bit darker there. I mean, I'm just going round it all and giving it a, you know, that's all I'm doing. So these like little flowers here, let's do some of these here. So round and round we go like that, and then just kind of do that. And same here, kind of dark around the edges, and bringing that paint up, making it light around there. We'll do a different sort of shade of this, a sort of burgundy, because I do want to kind of bring in the burgundies here, so we'll do make it a wee bit darker, but not too much. Just keep dipping your brush in your water until you've got what you're looking for. Yeah, so like a wee bit darker there around these edges. And because it's watercolor style, you don't need to worry if you leave white gaps. That just kind of adds to it. I don't want to go anywhere near the cabbages again. I've got off them. I think I'm going to do this. I've got a kind of peachy sort of peachy tone. That would have been perfect for my cabbages actually. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a bit more of this, and we'll see where we end up soon. So I'm still painting away, now doing, I had tried a gold colour, but it was too dark, so we'll just kind of go over that there. Just it doesn't matter in the big scale of the overall thing. And this is the sort of colour that I'm going to be doing, the sort of the swirls. I'm not watering this one down as much. I am putting water in it, but just a little bit. Kind of like doing, and I think maybe I'll just touch these because we're going to be putting some gold down here as well, so any ones that I can find of these I'll just do a little bit of gold on here too. But what I've done so far is I haven't done sort of yellow centres or anything in there, and it's kind of heavier, this one, just some around here. I've done the florals on this bottom edge. I'm just about to do this sort of goldy colour here. I've started and I've got some bits to finish when I thought I would come back with this gold colour, which I've just mixed for her belt. I'm just going to put a little bit of that here and there. Just give it a little bit of bling. I've done her skin tone, and I've done this sort of, I don't know what we're calling it, ribbon. Let's call it ribbon. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint all the gold parts up the top, our necklace, and then we'll start gluing some of the pieces that I wanted to put on the headdress, but I have to paint those separately, so I'll show you what I'm doing with them. But I'll just work away on this sort of goldy colour there now and just get all these bits here painted in. So all I'm doing now is I'm just putting suggestions of sorts of colours up in here on her sort of fancy bikini sort of jewelry sort of top thing. Doing that, and I'm just kind of mixing different colours out of my original colour palette that I've got. So I want to be putting some more sort of pinks, so I'm using the sort of peach and the pink together with plenty of water. I mean, you can see the water swimming around in my palette, and I'm going to put some pinks up in there like that. Just give it a suggestion that there's sort of pinks in there, and I will want something slightly darker, so I'm going to pick from this palette this purpley red with a bit of the hot pink. I'm not going to water it down as much for this one, so I'm just going to Just going to do something like that, and that kind of gives it a different kind of colour. And add some of that to here. Just round about. As I said, the eye makes up what it sees. So as far as the eye's concerned, you know, that's all, you know, kind of watercoloured in, painted sort of nicely. Right, now we've got this problem here. Martin's quite concerned about it. So I'm going to show you how we're going to fix that in a minute. I just need to get the equipment to do that. But before we do this, I'm just going to get my moulds, and I'll just hand paint the moulds, and so you can see what I'm doing for the moulds, because I'm going to stick one obviously here, and I've got some for her hair and things. I'm not quite made up my mind about her hair. I think I might just actually quite leave that alone. I'm tempted to give her eyeshadow, but I'm not going to do that either. Her dress, I'm just going to leave white as well. These parts here, let's do these parts here. So for these parts here, you can use something this size.
What size?
That size. A bigger brush, so that you can get more water. And I'm going to go for a sort of green, but I'm mixing some of this blue and some of that green here and some of this light green together. Once I've got the colour I'm looking for, I just add plenty of water to it, and it might come out too thick, so we'll have to have a wee kind of try first. Nope, that's perfect. And what we're doing there is we're just literally doing this round the bow like that. You don't want to be going mad with it. Like that. And then maybe put a different sort of tone. Maybe some more of this sort of green. A little bit more water again. You want this one to be a little bit darker. So you're just going to kind of do that. Where it kind of bends, like that. Oh, so that's what we're doing here, and we're going to do the same. We'll do the kind of these bits here like that. Now, if you don't feel confident, you can use a bigger brush, but this is the one I'm choosing to use. And you could put, if you wanted, you could get really giddy and you could go back to the goldy sort of colour and mix some of your brush through that. Plenty of water, and you could just kind of like sort of touch it with some gold. Like that. I'm tempted to kind of like maybe do something like that for her top. And that's her jewels. My transfer's not really transferred too well there, so we'll just make a suggestion of that. And now we're going to kind of, that's her skin colour, which is skin colour. It's very, very watered down pink, a little bit of beige, and it's very, very watered down. I did that separately just in a lid of my paint. I think I thought maybe here, and where else did I think was skin that I'd missed? Maybe up here. Yeah, I think we're kind of like, we're getting there now. We'll fix this, and then I'll just get the moulds out and we'll do the moulds. I think we should maybe do our peacock, because even though the moulds are going over the top, the peacock is quite pivotal. And I want my paint a little bit darker, so I'm just going to stand up and kind of mix. Or maybe not, I could probably do it so that... Now, peacock's the sort of green. Brush a bit heavier here. We'll put some gold and maybe some, a bit of this, maybe some blue. Touch around there. and maybe a tad bit of this sort of yellow. Doesn't matter if they quite mix together, they make quite a nice different shade of, yeah. So it's just a suggestion. I mean, you really would be wanting to put maybe a bit more navy in it if you were doing this, you know, and darken it up a bit there. This here I think should be gold. I know I'm spending quite a lot of time on this. We are going to be moving on from this shortly. Do that. Maybe sort of darken up this edge here. Around there. There. Now just kind of blend that in with that one. Okay. That's us. Now these are not being watercoloured, these are actually being painted in. So you're kind of trying to not touch the finish underneath it. I thought I'd make these quite bright and sort of kind of like almost sort of stand out. I mean, I might go back and soften them up, but I'm going to kind of tidy this up off camera. It's just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing. So that's that one. Might need to get on a chair actually. And we'll just take that to around this edge. Oh, that looks tidy. Any little boo-boos we can touch up. Right, I'll just clean my brush or get another brush. So as I said, just pick colours that you think are going to work with the overall end of sort of end of design. So I'm going to do with this one, and then get another brush again, and I'm going to do this one here, this sort of peach. You get the concept, just the undiluted, unmixed colours that we started with that are in our painting of the Queen. So I'm going to go ahead and do this on both sides and get these all nice and tidy, because these are going to have some gold leaf over the top of them once they're done. Okay. Okay, so I have a gold acrylic pen, and I didn't want to tape it off. I just want a suggestion of a thin line. So all I'm doing is getting my ruler and doing this down to the bottom here. Now we're going to be covering this with gold in a minute, so just going along that middle of that. You don't have to do this, I just wanted to kind of like give it a little bit more zhuzh. Zhuzh is the word, Martin. Zhuzh. Martin, you're well aware of zhuzh, aren't you?
Yep.
And I'm just going to go along all these stripes. You don't need to see me do all of them, but we'll come back in a minute. So this part here, when you stand back from the furniture, you can see a line. So all I've got is a thin acrylic pen, and all I'm doing is moving the cross hatching that was there and bringing it down and just fixing that there so that there's no, from a distance, there's no line at all. Just kind of do a sort of something there that is a suggestion of that's where it went. And we'll maybe just do this across there. Yeah, I fixed up, there was a piece missing here, so I fixed there. And I just did the same up here, so just imagine, you know, you're just kind of like filling in, fixing that. And I'm just going to fix this portion, this word here, portion. So I'm just going to make this join up and make it darken a little bit, just because it's not, you have to watch with the pens only really perform if they're going the right way, and on furniture they kind of get a little bit tricksy. Like this one here. My main concern was that part here. I want this T to join up with here. Darken up the top there. And this piece here, where the T is missing, just to kind of darken it up a bit. It's just from a distance to make sure it all works. Yeah? So that's those fixes done. So I've painted this, I've got plenty of glue on the back. There is going to be a little bit of a splodge which we can repair when we put this on, because it will seep out. And I want to put this just there and push it down, and I'll just get a little dry brush. Now I've pulled out my water here. And I'm just gonna touch in there, just where the glue is, just around there. Now I've got some others. Just want to make sure that's about right. That's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to have to touch that in with white now. I think it's too soon to do this. Don't do this at home. Yeah, just let that dry, and I'll touch that up with gold. This is going to have gold leaf on it, so as long as it doesn't look too grubby. Right, so that's going there. And I have these other flowers which are also going to be covered in gold leaf, and I think they're kind of going to go on a sort of crown with this one coming out the top here. So I'm just going to glue those on. I'll just glue those on off camera, just because I haven't got the glue ready. That's me just putting her shell on. Now, okay, so here I have some gilding adhesive, and in this bag here I should have gold leaf. There's plenty of my videos where you can see me applying gold. It's a reoccurring theme, but you need this to apply it with gilding adhesive. Call it size or whatever. Now, my top tip for applying this, as I'm making quite a mess, is get a sort of roughy tufty brush for this, because you don't want it in squares, the gold. You want it kind of sort of distressed, and the roughy tufty sort of hard acrylic paint acrylic brushes are good for this. So we've got a line here which I can see that I kind of want to have gold on it, and so you can see what I'm doing. I'm doing short, long, sort of roughy tufty strokes, to be honest with you, up and down. I'm just going to go along and I'm going to apply this, and then we'll stick some gold leaf on it once it's dry. I'll do the top as well so that you can see me doing that, but once this is dry I'll show you what we're going to do next. So this is me just doing the same thing at the top. I've kind of trialled some gold on here, but the gold leaf is going to go on these as well, and I'll show you what to do with those in a minute. So again, sort of long and short, but not covering up this part here. We're just bringing it up and down. I don't know what the technical term is for roughy tufty strokes, but you know what I mean, kind of like short and long, up and down, kind of roughy tufty. We're in a very silly mood today. This, we're just going over the top of the detail so that we can put some gold on, some proper gold, and the same with here. Anywhere where the adhesive goes, the gold leaf will stick. This
this was the side I practiced with gold paint, and this was the side that I decided no, gold was the way to go. So you can see the white, it's just, the way I'm rubbing it over, it's just going over the top of the detail, and the colour will be left underneath. And the bottom scrolls that I put on, the ones down the bottom, I just painted with gold, and they look good, so I'm happy with that. Okay, this isn't quite dry to kind of like do the gold, but we'll do a little bit. This was painted gold, but I wasn't exactly, you know, that little boo-boo that I made. I'm just going to do this. So I'm just going to go on now, and I'm going to finish one of the sides, then I'll show you what I did on the other side. So I've just got the toile stamp again. I've not stamped the whole piece, just pieces and parts, because we're going to put the tape over it. It's just for the suggestion that there's a floral underneath, underneath the tape. That's all I'm doing with this white section. Again, I left the bleed through on this because I thought I want to try and cover that boo-boo. Hopefully I'll maybe get it with the tape. So it's just a suggestion of the florals underneath it. That's all I'm doing here. Just kind of going round it. I'm just going to do the whole piece with this, and then we'll get to put our masking tape on, and we'll do the detail over the top. Okay, so I've got my sheets of gold leaf, and I am just applying it where the glue was, making sure that I've patted it down. You just go along it. And as I said, I've got quite a few videos where I've used gold leaf in the past, so, you know, in your excess, just pull it off and stick it somewhere else. It'll only stick where the glue is, so you just have to kind of keep rubbing it around. It's not always easy finding where you put the glue. Sometimes I forget. You can apply it on with your paper if that makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to have to put this pile down on the ground. So I'm just kind of moving it along, making sure that everything where I've applied my glue is covered in gold leaf. Now you can sweep up all your little pieces that have came off, and you can use all those little parts again for other projects, so it doesn't have to be too crazy. So you just go along it, finding where your glue is. Any bits where it's not sticking, then there's no glue, just move it along to the next part. What I'm doing with my hand is I'm just checking that there's no sticky bits. If there's sticky parts, then you need to put more gold leaf on it. Checking there's nowhere else that this is going to stick to. I think we've got it. Now, all these parts, grab them and stick them up there. Already done here. It's just kind of like, it's not wasting too much if you do it that way. Again, with the flat, you just, the same with molds, you're just sticking it to where, anywhere that it's sticky, it'll stick. Anywhere that it isn't sticky, it won't. Now, lots of people will say now to get a really soft brush and brush it with a really soft brush. And you can do that, but the way I like to do it is I have just a cheap big emulsion brush. You can see it's got bits of copper in it. This is the one I use all the time. And how I do it is I kind of go down the wave like that. And that's so it's got a nice zigzaggy line. It is messy, so I hope your hoover works, or your vacuum. There. Now, so I've gone and done all the details as well round here off camera. I just wanted to show you that process. So here's been done, there's been done, her shell's been done, our gold down the bottom has been done, and I'm not doing those two down the bottom, although everything's super shiny now. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just making sure there's none of this stuck everywhere, because when you go to, I'm going to be lacquering this, you don't want little bits of loose lacquer, because then it'll stick to your finish, so you really have to kind of make sure that it's all gone. And I can do that, the rest of that off camera. So what I have here is some of the original colour that I painted it with little bits of gold in it now. And I have some glaze, some black glaze, and I'm just going to squeeze some of this out onto my lid of my ice cream container. Actually, I think it's running a little bit loose, so empty, so we'll do that. Now, I have two types of brushes. You can see the mess this is making. This is a place that where I wish I was in the stable. So I've got a fine one, and you're just going to mix up a sort of darker shade of your bit of your glaze and a little bit of your original. Test it on the side if you think it's not dark enough, but you don't want it black either. So there's a fine line. I've got another bigger blending brush. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this round in here. This won't move the same way wax does, but I'm looking for a kind of more outward sort of finish. You know, if it was wax, you could wipe and move. So if you'd rather use wax at this stage, well, you know, that's maybe something to consider if you're looking for a little bit more control. Just kind of fix that. And I'm just going to rub it along my top edge to just give it a bit of a shadow. And then I'm going to come round and do in behind here and work it out. So you get the sort of what I'm going to do around all these details, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to take it and rub it round the whole edge of the piece like this. I'm going to darken it up slightly and just go along that gold as well. Yeah, like that. And down only to where it's purple, only where the purple colour is. You're not going any further than that. So I need to soften this edge up here. It looks like a bit like a stripe at the moment, but I'll come back and do this. So we're moving on to here now. And you're just going to move all around the piece now, doing what I'm showing you with this glaze and purple. Can you see what that's doing? It's just finishing off my edge. It's just giving it almost a frame. And this is where you get really kind of into your painting, you know, when you're doing things like this, you can start really kind of experimenting. As I said, if you're doing this for the first time and you're a wee bit unsure, I would use wax, because you can clear wax at first, then dark wax over the top, and you can get rid of any little bits that you're not happy with, whereas this is not changeable. Once I've done this, this is it. That's it, on for good. Now I want my kind of like darker areas here, my shadows, to be right down in these corners down here, so I'm going to have to kind of duck down.
ignore the mess down here. So you get what I'm doing now. I'm just going to go around the whole of the piece now and just finish that off the way I'm doing here. We're finished. So let's just do a really quick recap on what we did with this piece. It was a mid-century modern. It was nice and flat, which gave me the real estate to apply everything that I needed to apply. I kind of judged out where everything was going to be going by cutting out the inlay and kind of placing it on. Now remember, masking tape, a really low tack tape. Don't use a strong tape because you might rip your inlays. So once you've got the kind of general positioning of where you want it to go, then white paint for the background. I let the bleed through come through to give it that aged look. If you don't want that, you know, Zinsser Bennett, prime it first. After that was done, we applied our inlays, we did our striping, we painted in our, we put our molds, we did some gold leaf, and the piece has been sealed now multiple times. Especially the inlays. Make sure that you seal your inlays before you paint them, because when you add water to the ink onto the chalk paint that's on the inlay, it'll just start to run. So there are two important points: low tack tape, and make sure that you seal your piece before you paint it. So it's finished, and I've been Lyle from Made by Marley. I really hope you've enjoyed this. This is something different to do with the Queen of the Nile inlay, which I haven't seen. If you've enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, share it, leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up, and I'll see you again another day. Thanks.